Welcome back to Relatable Wisdom, the podcast where everyday people share the quotes that shaped how they see life, helping us all find a little more clarity and connection in our daily journey. Today I'm joined by David McClam, a podcast host from Palmdale who's turned his experience as a survivor into a source of strength for others. Spent nearly a decade in podcasting, sharing stories of resilience while helping newcomers find their voice in the medium he's come to love. Let's settle in and hear the words that have guided David through his path of healing and purpose. Tell us your name and what you do.
So my name is David McClam. I am a podcaster. I run the show True Crime Authors and Extraordinary People, as well as a show called Extinguished. And I work in the tech field, so that's what I do.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for accepting my invitation to be on the podcast, David.
Thank you for having me here, man. I appreciate it.
What's your favorite quote?
I think it has to be always stay humbled. And I say that after every one of my episodes. So that has to be my favorite quote that I live by.
Okay. What are the experiences that makes this quote resonate deeply with you?
I think sometimes when people get to certain places in life, they kind of forget where they come from or want to forget. And that leads into not being humble. You should be humble for everything you have, because the things that you do get, they can easily be taken away from you. So sometimes we get the big head, or, we think we're all that. And you just have to remember to stay grounded. And I think staying humble aids in that.
Okay. Yeah. When you say always stay humble, right? It's a simple term. It's something that everyone will understand. But would you be kind enough to explain to us what you mean, and if possible, use an illustration of maybe a personal experience or an anecdote to just explain when you say stay humble, what does that mean?
Just always be grateful for what you have or what you get. Be grateful for what you have in the now and not so much what you're looking for in the future. So I think if everybody was grateful for what they have now, for all the blessings that we have, that what leads to staying humble. Usually when people's not humble, they get the big head, hey, I'm going to make this million. If I don't make this million, I'm going to do this. Or they're not grateful for what they have in front of them. And I think that just adds to just not being a great person at the end of the day. So I think staying humble just means you're grateful for where you are, and you always will succeed forward with that.
Okay. Always stay humble. Always stay humble. Yeah, I'm curious, right? The favorite quote is a quote that is your favorite quote because when you look back at your life, most of the things and most of your occurrences, if we were to articulate it, you're like, oh yeah, always stay humble. And so I'm curious to know, can you share with me some of the stories in your life that, looking back, they just articulate the quotes, always stay humble, for you to stay humble?
Not personally with me, because my mom always kept me pretty grounded, but I have friends of mine that they became very successful. And as they became successful, they forgot where they came from, right? So back in the day, before they made all this money, they would give somebody $1 if they were hungry, give them a bag of fries from McDonald's, or show some empathy for someone that may not have it where they do. Then as they got more successful in life, that all started to go away, which I believe adds into humbleness. They turn from being a humble individual to somebody that is arrogant, self-centered, looks down on someone else for not having where they were, when you seem to forget this is exactly where you were maybe a year ago.
Yeah.
And I always say we're all one paycheck short of just being in that same spot. So I think that's what I mean by staying humble. When you get to where you're going to get, when God has blessed you to the point to where you feel like you are successful, always try to bring up that next person with you. Do the same things that you've always done before, but now you can do them greater. Maybe if you help somebody get some food, if you can only give them $5, now you're able to give them 50 and feed the whole family. You just have to elevate yourself with what you have. No one likes a self-centered person. And I think some of us get that way after we hit a certain level of success.
I'm curious, right? What would you say some of the reasons why people, it's quite surprising. You see certain persons, they tell you why they have nothing, why they quote unquote suffering. They tell you that, oh, if I get this, if I do this, I'm going to help people. I'm going to be kind. I'm going to make sure that nobody suffers this thing that I'm going through. And the moment they have this breakthrough, they get the money and all those things, they become even worse than the people that we are in power. that we empower and everything. And you start wondering, wait, is it not this friend of mine that I knew when he was in this same situation that he was saying that he was going to be more considerate, more this, more that. How come? What happened? What went wrong? All this why?
Well, the big head comes in, right? Everybody says that, man, if I get a million a day, I'm gonna go help this person down the street. And then you get the million, like you said, they forget about it. If you look at just in Hollywood alone, the world's most richest African American woman is Oprah Winfrey. And if you listen to her story, she always says that because she was raised where she was and poor, she always wanted to give back. Yet she's the least person to give back anything when crises happen. I just think sometimes people say these things off the cuff and not really mean it. I have that goal, which I will keep that, and I have, with the little success I've had, I've further helped people come up. I'm starting my own production company for that reason, just to help people come up in the podcast world because I feel like I've been successful and I want to pass it along. But it's easy to say what you would do because you ain't there yet. Then when you get there, the whole thing changes.
Yeah, but now you say that the whole thing changes. I'm curious because it's not like they lose the okay, in this case, in this context, money, because it's not just money to help. There's so many ways one could help people, but it's not that they lose the money or they lose the what's the word, the power, the access to, let's say they say, if I become the governor or if I become this, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make this law, I'm going to give all those things. It's not that they still have that's power, that's money. And so, for me, I'm still wondering if they still have that thing. If they wanted to, they could. Why do they not want to? What happened? What changed? And that's, for me, is what I'm trying to wrap my head around.
Sometimes you got to look at, was the person ever genuine in the first
Oh,
place,
okay.
right? Were they telling you this because they were going to do that, or did they tell you that because they wanted your support? If you look at what's going on, and I'm not trying to be political, but look at what's going on in America right now with our current president situation. There was a lot of things that he said he was going to do and not do until he got in office. And if you paid attention to the dialogue that he had at the time and the things he's on the campaign trail, we've all tried to warn people, look in between what he's saying, because he's telling you he's doing all this stuff, but he's going to lie to you to get your vote. So a lot of people do that. Maybe they didn't change, but they know, hey, if I can get in this situation, I can do all this stuff that I want to. So I'm going to play on the heartstrings of people. I'm going to tell them what they want to hear. I'm going to use the last administration and what people hate and was frustrated about to bring myself in, and then I'm just going to wreck the world. So you have to be careful of that too. Sometimes people just lie to get to where they want to go.
Yeah, but sometimes I feel like what I can remember is one of the jokes that one of the former presidents of America, I think Reagan or something like that. I can't remember his exact name. Help me out. His name is like Reagan,
Ronald
Ronald
Reagan.
Reagan, yeah. And there's this joke he made that, a little girl one day, she was asked, she saw a man who was, homeless and struggling to eat, and he was like, okay, say if when I become president, I'm going to make sure that this child gets this man, nobody goes hungry, everybody has food and all of this, and they was like, yeah, and I think I don't know, someone looked at the guy and was like, no, you don't have to wait till you're president. You can go work and do some, little menial jobs and get that money and take that money and buy a meal for this man. I think it was like, and the guy was like, wait a minute, why do I have to do the work? Why can't he go do the work? Right? And I feel like at some point in time, people, when they don't have the resources, right, they're not yet attached to it. They can easily make promises because there's no attachment. There's no, oh, now this is my money. And immediately they have the power, they have the money, they have all those things. It becomes a different game entirely. And so now we're like, okay, can we say they were not genuine when they made those promises?
Some people are not, yeah. They're not genuine. They want you to feel like they are to get to where they're going to go. Now, you can really tell a genuine person because that person is going to care. They're going to show empathy. That's another part of, I believe, of staying humble. Everybody assumes, at least in America, that if you're homeless, it's because you're lazy or you can't keep a job or
Yeah.
you just want can handle, right? If you take the time to sit down and give somebody, hey man, let me share this burger with you. What's your story? You'll be amazed at what you find out. Hey man, I had everything in the world, and then this flood happened and took out my whole house, and now here I am. I live in California. As you probably know, a couple months ago, we had the California
Yeah.
wildfires. The one thing that I was shocked about is now that wildfire hit mainly among Hollywood's elite. The Pacific Coast Highway is where it mainly hit. So it wiped out a bunch of homes. The one things that you probably would never hear is no one came up and said, oh my gosh, Ned Beatty lost his home. So now he's homeless. Well, probably because he couldn't keep a job, right? Because they know, well, he had millions, but there was no insurance. Why does that person has to be different than an everyday Joe like you and myself? We probably felt on hard times. So you have to sit down and say, man, what's your story before you assume that that person is just lazy. I've heard people all the time, like, man, I'm not giving you anything. Go get a job. Okay. Well, if it was that easy, how do we know that that man or that woman wouldn't be out there getting a job? Now, don't get me wrong. You can always tell the people that is actually pulling your leg because they're dumb enough to not dress the part. So if you walk up with somebody got Michael Jordan's on and a FUBU shirt and they have a sign that says they're hungry, you're probably going to think twice about that. But you can always see the genuine article in that. So yes, unfortunately, a lot of people is just not genuine. They're telling you what you want to hear to be able to obtain what they wish.
Yeah.
Let's take a quick pause. If you're enjoying this conversation and want more thought-provoking ideas straight to your inbox, join the Relatable Wisdom email list. It's free, quick, and filled with bite-sized insights, inspiring quotes, and behind-the-scenes reflections from our guests. Just head to relatablewisdom.com/join. That is relatablewisdom.com/join, or tap the link in the show notes. And hey, subscribing to the podcast helps more than you think, and it's free. So if you haven't already, hit that follow button wherever you're listening. All right, let's get back to the conversation.
You just saying your statement about story just reminded me of this YouTube channel. I just happened to stumble across it, and it's called Invisible People. And what they do is they go about getting to have homeless people share their story. And I saw some persons like they had incredible, like really really great jobs before they became homeless. And sometimes it was either they had caught on fire and so many things. And I was like, whoa, I never got to see this perspective. I just had this preconceived notion before, and now every time I watch different episodes, different videos, I hear different stories of these people before they became homeless, what happened and all that. And I'm like, wow, life just happened. It's not like they were not serious or they were not hardworking. Because I see people who had PhDs, who had jobs that were paying incredibly well, probably because the house got on fire, probably because they had this illness that almost wipes them clean of of their savings and everything. And I'm like, wow. We have these projections, these theory and conclusions, and so we project it on people and all that. And I'm like, wow, I'm glad that I know better now.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's like that. And where I live in California, everybody, I don't care how much money you got, is about a paycheck away from being that person. So it's kind of like what I ask myself is, if I was in this person's situation, would I want them to help me? Would I want them to think I'm just somebody who is worth nothing without talking to me? So I always try to give back to those what I would want if I was in that situation.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm never in that situation, but if I can help you out, I'm grateful to do so.
Yeah. When I first saw the quote, always stay humble, right? I know this is part of an interpretation of the quote, but what I was thinking of is actually being humble in the terms of a lot of people, once they get access to a position of power, their friends can no longer advise them. Their mom can no longer talk to them and say, "Oh, what are you doing?" Like every other person becomes what's the word? They become less than them. And there's this quote that pride goes before a fall. Yeah, and that for me, that was the thought process that was behind it. Not just okay, no, people could actually help people, but still be proud, right? And still not want to take advice. Still, so many areas, and that for me, I was like, whoa, always stay humble, always stay humble, always stay humble. And they're like, yeah.
And I give you one instance that just in podcasting alone. And I had some people come say, I can't believe you said that. Well, here's why I'm in podcasting. Very rarely do I ever look at my stats. A lot of podcasters are really concerned, man, did I get 1,000 downloads? Did I get 2,000? Did I get 1 million? To be honest with you, I care about my audience, but I don't care about my numbers, because the way I feel is this: if I only have one person listening to my podcast, that means I touched that person that day. Who knows where that person was before he or she decided to pop into my show? So if I only have one person in that audience that's listening to what I'm saying or what a guest is saying and it helped them, then I feel like as a podcaster, I've done my job. And I think that's part of staying humble. I know a lot of podcasters, man, if I don't get 1,000 downloads, then I'm not going to do this anymore. Where's your humbleness in that? Is it just because you want your ego so that you can put on a card, I'm in the top 5 podcasts? I had a battle with a podcast not long ago because they were like, oh, he's a better podcaster than you. Look at where he's at. And he's in the top, the top 100 of the podcast. Found out the guy's not in the top 100. He was in the top 250. And I said, hey, I'm not even in the top 250, right? I'm probably 400, but I'm cool with that. And why am I cool with that? That's because I'm not lacking guests. People want to come on my show all the time, but I'm cool at where I'm at because I'm helping people. If I got to be in the top 5 to do that, then I don't feel that's very humble, and I'm just looking out for myself. So I think that's a part of me staying humble. I don't really pay attention to my stats. Now I have to look. I'm in a program to where they said they can bring me more listeners, so they want me to peek in and give them. And I'm always humbled. I interviewed, a celebrity not long ago, and her name is Tamron Hall. I don't know if you ever heard of her over there, but Tamron Hall is a big true crime investigator. She was on shows, and now she has the longest running show on Disney with her Tamron Hall talk show. The moment I got a notification that said, hey, Tamron Hall wants to come on your show, my first reaction was, this has got to be a scam. Why you want to go my show, right? I'm like Joe Rogan. And so basically, I found out it was true. I booked on my show, and I asked her publicist, says, how did you find me? How did you have Tamron come on the show? And she says, oh, you don't know. She says, well, you're listed in the top 2% in the world globally on listen notes. We won't put anybody on a show unless they're in that top 5%. And I'm like, yeah, you pulling my leg. I'm not in the top 2%. Certainly, I go look and I'm in the top 2%. And she goes, you don't know that? I says, no, I never look at my stats. I just feel like if people listen to my show, they like what I do, and I'm fine with that. So as a podcaster, I think that's the way that we do stay humble. If we stop chasing the numbers will come to us, but we have to be humble enough to know that what we're doing on the other end is helping somebody. And another thing is, I never turn down a show, either coming on a show or have somebody come on my show. I feel like everybody has value. So whether you have one person that listens to your show, I never heard of your show, you in a different country, if you took the time to write me and say, hey, this is why I wanted to come on my show, 9 out of 10, I'm going to write back and say, absolutely. I've never had a podcast yet that hasn't been a match. So that's just my advice on that part of staying humble there.
Yeah. I feel like over times we reduce people to numbers, and it gets us to forget that, oh yeah, I could change someone's life, right? And that for me, it's really, really important. Wow, always stay humble. In when I was going through your answers, I noticed that you did mention that your story as growing up, and all your, what's the word, experience through life, that has always been the mantra, right? I'm curious, right? I just want to step back a bit. What was your training like?
My training, like as far as being raised, well, if you read my whole thing, you see that I'm a survivor of domestic abuse from a father and from a spouse. My mother was my grounding point for that. So she's always trained me up to be an outstanding young man. She said, you always have to give back. It's a give or take situation in life. The kindness that you put out in the world will come back to you. And so my mom, even though I saw her go through an incredible abuse, always wanted to instill in me those things that I would carry throughout life. I feel like I didn't get in a lot of trouble that people back in my day did was because of my mom. And, back then, a parent can actually chastise a kid without going to jail. So I was probably more afraid of my mom than I was the police. But and then you carry that into adulthood. You feel like that you're always carrying somebody with you, especially if you had a good upbringing. So I always felt like everything I did in life reflected on my mother. If I was to go shoot somebody, they're going to say, oh, his mom didn't raise him right because she raised a killer. So then you always, part of that humbleness there is realizing you didn't get where you were solely on your own. There are some people behind you that helped you behind the scenes, and they may not be sitting in front of a microphone. They may not have all the fame that you may get, but they really do if you carry them correctly. So I think I was trained and brought up right from that.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that, and thank you for sharing your quotes. Always stay humble, and just sharing with me some of the stories and the examples.
No problem, man. Thank you for having me here. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah. If people want, not if, where can my listeners learn more and connect with you?
Sure. So my website is truecrimeandauthors.com. You can also write me an email, truecrimeandauthors@gmail.com. If you do go to my website, I have a cool little thing there where you can actually leave me a voice message if you don't want to write it as well.
Okay.
So that's how you can get a hold of me.
Just out of curiosity, what's the podcast, your podcast about?
So True Crime, All Extraordinary People, it's about what it sounds like. So I love true crime. I've done true crime for 9 years. So one week I give you true crime. Another week I would give you an interview with an author. So people who likes to read. My goal there was to help authors who were independent get their books out. I've read a lot of independent authors, and if I didn't know them, you don't either. My third is Extraordinary People. It's people I bring on the show that has been through something or done something extraordinary that can help somebody else. Case in point, I've had people that's been trafficked. I'm about to have a girl come on my show in August who's been an author since she's been 12, and she has 30 books to her credit. So imagine what that would be for the youth of the world. Hey, I was 12, I'm 16 now, I've written 30 books. Here's what you. So that part of the show is to bring people on that can empower other people that say, hey, I'm down on my luck. Well, so was I. Here's how I can come back. And then I'm the only, still at this point, 3-faceted show that does what I do in all genres of podcasting.
Wow. Thank you so much. And yeah, just you talking about the podcast, I'm excited. Especially about the one extraordinary people. Yeah, it's important we listen to such podcasts so that we know what is possible. And I feel that once sometimes all we need to know is that this is possible. Like once you just know that, because sometimes people cannot chase or execute an idea because the idea is not even in their head in the first place. And so the only way to get of an idea is to listen to podcasts like that, so that you know, oh yeah, this lady, she did this and she did this, depending on the story that resonates. And I'm like, yeah, I'm a lady too. I have this issue too. And once that idea has been planted, you start finding ways to get that stuff done, and eventually you just do something and you chase your passion and purpose. Thank you so much, David.
No problem. Thank you. I appreciate it.
It was an absolute delight chatting with you.
Same with you.
You've been listening to Relatable Wisdom, and I've been your host, Wisdom Okonkwo. You've been listening to the podcast where every story, quote, and insight helps you see life a little differently. If you enjoyed today's episode, follow the show on your favorite podcast app and share it with someone who loved the conversation. For more inspiring voices and timeless wisdom, visit relatablewisdom.com. Until next time, keep living, learning, and collecting wisdom that matters most to you.